Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for tuning into this channel. This is part 3. We are going to continue from where we stopped at part 2 in reviewing Half of a Yellow Sun by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. Arize, Olana's cousin. She is Uncle Ibezi and Auntie Ifeka's daughter. Arize is eager to find a husband and get married. Like her parents, she looks up to Olana. Mohammed, he is a handsome Hausa man. Even after Olana leaves him for Odenigbo, they remain on good terms and she frequently visits him until the war starts. During the war, he writes her letters, but they feel very distanced. Baby, Olana and Odenigbo's daughter. Amala is baby's birth mother, but refuses to keep her. When Olana sees her, she decides to adopt her. Baby's real name is Chiamaka, which means God is beautiful. Kenine picks it, but it is rarely used. Susan Granville Pitts. Initially, Richard's girlfriend. She lives in Nigeria, but mainly associates with other expatriates or upper-class Nigerians. Her racism towards Nigerians, as well as her possessiveness towards Richard, emerge periodically throughout the novel. Major Madu, lifelong friend of Kenine. Major Madu serves in first the Nigerian army and later in the Biafran army. He and Richard's relationship is strained due to the uncertainty of Madu's role in Kenine's life. Special Julius, army contractor. He becomes a frequent visitor of Odenigbo when they are in Umuahia. Ekwenugo, member of the science group in the Biafran army. Ekwenugo meets Olana and Odenigbo in Umuahia. Mrs. Mokelu, co-teacher with Olana at Umuahia. Olana finds Mrs. Mokelu as manly and slightly judgmental. Mrs. Mokelu eventually stops teaching and starts trading across enemy lines. Okoromadu, an old acquaintance of Olana's. Okoromadu helps her get emergency supplies for baby in Umuahia. Eberechi, Ugu's love interest in Umuahia. Eberechi is exploited for her parents' benefits. Alice, Odenigbo and Olana's neighbor in their second place of residence. Alice seeks refuge in Umuahia after being tricked by an army colonel. She is known as a recluse and avid pianist. Mystery shrouds her relationship with Odenigbo. Father Marcel helps coordinate refuge camp with Kenine in Orlu. Father Marcel is later accused of impropriety by some of the refugees. High Tech, a young soldier and leader of Ugu's units. High Tech's name refers to the commanders claiming he is more useful than a high technology spying gadget. That is all we have under the characters. Now let's look at the themes. War. The Nigerian Civil War, or the Nigerian Biafran War, started on 6 July 1967 and ended on 13 January 1970. The war broke out due to political and ethnic struggles, partly caused by the numerous attempts of the southeastern provinces of Nigeria to secede and form the Republic of Biafra. Political conflicts between the Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa and Fulani people erupted into two deadly military coups. The Igbo tried to break away from Nigeria to become the Republic of Biafra, but were met with little support. From 1968 onward, the war fell into a form of deadlock, with Nigerian forces unable to make significant advances into the remaining areas of Biafran control. The Nigerian government cut off humanitarian aid to Biafra, resulting in hundreds of thousands of civilians dying from starvation and disease. Many lives and resources were lost during the war, including Adichie's grandfather, and even today, there are still tensions between the different ethnic and religious groups of Nigeria. The story in Half of a Yellow Sun centers on the war. Adichie grew up in the aftermath of the war. The need to write about it came from growing up in its shadow. This thing that I didn't quite understand was my legacy. It's over about everything, she has stated, and believes that many of the issues that caused the war remain today. She further commented that the war is talked about in uniformed and unimaginative ways, and that the war is as important to the Igbo people, her book features today, as it was then. Because none of the major political events were changed in the book. Adichie said that the book contained emotional truth and that the book showed the war had a significant impact upon the people of Nigeria. 2. Politics and identity in post-colonial Africa. The social gatherings at Odenigbo's house are full of debate on Africa's political future. Here, the usefulness of various forms of African governance are discussed amongst the Nigerian intelligentsia. One particularly noteworthy debate involves Odenigbo defending the tribe as the ideal unit for African, as other characters stress the need for Pan-Africanism or nationalism. He is quoted as proclaiming the only authentic identity for the African is the tribe. I am Nigerian because a white man created Nigeria and gave me that identity. I am black because the white man constructed black to be as different as possible from his whites, but I was Igbo before the white man came. 3. Role of Westerners in post-colonial Africa. Although there is a clear reference to Western influence in the Biafran War, a more subtle examination is found in Richard's character. Richard, although with good intentions, tries too hard to be part of first Nigeria and later Biafra. His fascination with the culture and his wish to be part of Biafra leads him to speaking for Biafrans by attempting to write 2 novels, one about the arts and the second one about the Biafran War. Richard is unable to complete either and concludes that these are not his stories to tell. However, he is effective when he writes about the war for the Western press, which actually helps Biafra's cause. Adichie herself has said in an interview that maybe Richard's character is my subtle way of sleeping in my politics, that maybe it's time that Africans wrote about Africa. Relevance of academia in everyday life. Many of the main characters in Half of a Yellow Sun are professors, including Olana and Odenigbo. Odenigbo regularly hosts fellow professors from Nsukka University for political discussions on the weekends. Over the course of the novel, Half of the Yellow Sun seems to criticize both these professors and their opinions. It does this by juxtaposing the high-minded political opinions of Odenigbo and his companions from the early 60s sections against the political realities of the late 60s sections. The novel also uses the same professors from the early 60s sections and puts them in the late 60s sections. Also, Kenai's business mind helps her successfully run a refugee